All right, welcome back, everybody, to Embrace the Squiggle. You have Colleen and Ashleigh here today, and our guest is someone who truly lives the squiggle. She is an educator, a consultant, and the founder of AWren Advisors, where she helps students and families navigate the beautifully messy journey of adolescence and education. After nearly 2 decades in independent schools as a teacher, a coach, and a dean of students, she's built a career around guiding people through some of life's most uncertain and transformative seasons. But her path, it was far from linear. From sweeping floors in her family's hardware store to working internationally with ESPN to coaching in the kind of weather most of us would call a hard no, she has embraced every twist along the way. And each one has shaped how she thinks about resilience, leadership, and growth. She's thoughtful, grounded, and the kind of person who reminds you that there's no single right path, just the one you learn to navigate with intention. So we are so excited to get into it today with Kristen Peterson. Sorry about that, Kristen. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here. Thank you.
All right, so let's just jump right in. What did little Kristen think she was going to be when she grew up?
It's so different than what I'm doing now, but I grew up on a farm, and so animals, particularly like any type of farm animal, was in my day-to-day, and I knew I wanted to be a veterinarian. I was so clear in that journey, but I knew I didn't want to live and work in the United States. My dream job was to be a wildlife veterinarian working on the Sahara in Africa, to be honest. Yeah.
That was definitely big dreams.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was. It's really different than what I ended up doing. But I think that's part of this journey is finding yourself along the way and taking advantage of opportunities as they unfold before you. So not doing that, but sometimes in my house, I feel like we have a menagerie of animals. So I definitely have stayed connected to that passion and have shared that love of animals with my family.
I love that. So, you get through school. What do you end up studying in school and kind of what happened after that?
Yeah, that's a great sort of leeway into how I got on this journey. I'm a first generation graduate of college for my family. And a big part of what drove me in college or really selecting my college was, which school would give us the most financial aid. And so at the end of the day, I happened to be a pretty good athlete and chose a school that gave me almost a full ride to attend, which sounds great. But when I got to the school, I realized there wasn't really anything there that I felt deeply connected to and really sort of steered me away from what I thought would have been my path in studying animals. And so I chose the next best thing, which was cultural anthropology, which is the study of humans. Totally also a different type of animal, but really got to study different cultures around the world and loved that work and have used those skills in navigating my relationships with people in adolescence. But I ended up, through my athletic experiences in college, I was a 2-sport athlete, which is how I landed my first real job after college, which was working at ESPN. So even though cultural anthropology has come and helped me in my life, it did not feed what I ended up pursuing.
Sounds like a true liberal arts path, right? I think.
Yeah.
Completely.
Were you very active in sports when you were growing up? And I asked that question because of your first job being with ESPN. Was it something that was really surprising to you, or it was something you already had a passion for growing up and it felt natural stepping into that role there?
Yeah, actually, that's a great question. I found out about sports pretty late in life, especially when you think about the journeys that adolescents are taking today. I have a 10-year-old son and he has soccer practice tonight. And I think I started playing sports, but just casually when I was in 4th grade. But it wasn't really until middle school and high school that I realized, oh, I like this and I have a talent for this. So it was pretty late for me, but my experiences with sports definitely framed how I approached the rest of my life. It really had such a profound impact on me in terms of teamwork and support and setbacks and resilience, growth, being able to be coached and take that, and use it moving forward. Um, it also taught me about what leadership looks like, both maybe the kind of leader I don't want to be and the type of leadership that really drives people to be their best. Um, so no, my college coach, her name is Ann Parmenter, and at 47, I think was the first time she attempted to climb Mount Everest. So she was a big mentor of mine, a real inspirational leader for me. And she had this tight network of women who they supported one another. And so one of her good friends was a VP at ESPN, and um, I guess I reached out to them or they reached out to me. I can't quite remember the connection there, but I was an intern there to begin with and uh, traveled with them domestically for their NCAA tournaments and their games for the men's and women's basketball teams. And it was amazing. I got to be, an instrumental part of the Final Four. And I thought I wanted to do that work. However, after college, I was offered a job there and it wasn't quite what I wanted. It wasn't doing the work that I had been doing as an intern. And I was also offered a job at Miss Porter's school in Farmington, Connecticut as an intern, working with the young women there. And after a year of working there, I was offered another job at ESPN, which was more in line with what I did during my internship. But this was on the international sector. And I thought I was going to love it. I left Miss Porter's and I wanted to do this work and I was so excited. And after a few months of being at ESPN, I realized it wasn't fulfilling what my soul needed. I wasn't doing mission-driven work. I didn't feel like I was helping to make a difference in the lives of young people. And I said, I think I made a wrong turn here. I think I made a mistake. And so that's how I got back on the trajectory of working with teens.
Where were you living at the time when you started to make that transition in your mind and started to make the plan of, okay, I need to make a pivot? Were you still living internationally?
No. So the whole time, what's really great about ESPN is their hub, the primary location for them at the time, this was in the, 2005, was Bristol, Connecticut.
Ah, yes.
And I grew up not too far from there. And so I was living in Connecticut and staying in New England during that time.
I know the ending of the story or the current phase of the story. So I think of, okay.
No
so,
spoilers.
Right. So, right. You work in independent school. Like it was like ESPN, independent school, ESPN. And then you realize that wasn't a good fit. And so where'd you go?
Yeah. Right. So that's a great question. I ended up going to work at Suffield Academy, which is in Suffield, Connecticut, for a number of years. And I loved working there. I made so many of my best friends, people who were later in my wedding, at that institution. And what I loved about it was the sense of community. You lived there together, you worked there together. There was a really core group of young faculty, and we were all sort of entering these phases in our lives that were pretty similar, whether it was getting engaged or getting married, getting dogs, having babies. And I think that lifestyle back then, when you do that work together, it's pretty profound. They become family. You see them more than your family, and you have this shared responsibility that's pretty remarkable. And I loved it so much. I felt like I was doing this work that was planting the seeds for the future. It's helping kids. What's so interesting, Colleen, is we've all been teenagers, and that is such a hard time in life for many people. And, as educators, as parents or family members, when you're helping these teens during this really small part of their life, these moments in adolescence stick with us so much. And it's really because the brain is so primed at that time in our lives. Our senses are actually heightened. This one fact that I love about the adolescent brain is because our senses are so heightened during this time in our lives, smells actually smell sweeter to us. Candy actually tastes sweeter to us during our teenage years. And so I use that when I work with teens because they are in a part of their lives where they feel things so much more deeply than really any other time in their life. And our jobs as we care for them is to guide them gently and to encourage them gently. And so, that part of Suffield, when I was there, I was trying all sorts of pockets to find the one that fit me the best. And so sometimes in independent schools, you just have to get your foot in the door. And I had a former boss. I was coaching ice hockey for young boys during college, and John Gardner, he's this like really profound male coach at Emerald Farms. He passed away recently, but he said to me when I was looking to get a job out of college, he said, "Kristen, you just have to say you'll do anything. If they're like, can you teach math? You say yes. Can you teach English? Of course I can. Can you do admissions? Of course I can." And so I'm sort of led by that. And I got to live that at Suffield, where I started in advancement, and then I was a green dean, and then I taught leadership. I coached field hockey and lacrosse. I was a dorm head. I had the most advisees on campus. I raised my hand for anything because to me that was being a team player, and I gained so many skills just doing that, being willing to try anything.
And so that experience, I'm sure, brought you to what you're doing now as well. I mean, I know there were some other hops along the way there, but, talk about what you're doing now and how you're supporting teens and families.
Yeah, absolutely. I think to answer that question, I think I should talk a little bit about what led me to leave education in the formal setting. I'm sure there's many of your listeners out there who can relate to this, that I felt like I always was trying to do the right thing. I was trying to fit into the mold. I was trying every step of the way to be a team player, to try anything, to support others. And I just felt like I kept waiting to be picked for that next leadership role. I just kept waiting there, like hand up and just not called on. And that was really hard, especially when I saw folks who fit a certain demographic, who had less experience, who hadn't had teams, who hadn't managed budgets, just getting picked for these roles without a process. And I just felt like I didn't want to do that anymore. And I also realized in education, I kept looking above me and realizing didn't really want any of those jobs any longer. The landscape of boarding schools in particular had changed so much in my 20 years that I realized my dream of having what I thought it was going to be. The landscape of those institutions have had to change so much so that they can survive. And I realized I grew out of that profession. I grew out of the lifestyle, and I kept saying to myself, what's next? So I had applied to a bunch of professional schools. I thought I was going to go back and be a therapist for teens. I deferred my admissions at a school, and my husband said, take a year. You've never taken a year. You've hardly ever taken any time off. So take a year and figure it out. Not in a really encouraging way. And I did. And in that year, I realized I didn't want to leave my work with teens. I felt like there's something missing in the support for parents and the support for teens that's not out there yet. And that's where I created AWren Advisors. And I realized that families need support. And I have this great friend, and she's helping me really refine the work that I do because it's not out there yet. So what it is, it's taking work with adolescents or their families and making that work deeper, more relational, more developmental. So what that could look like for a family is maybe you need support in the college process. Maybe you need support looking for independent schools, or maybe support in high school. Maybe you need support as you are navigating your first year of college. But what it is, it's relational. It's about centering the student, centering who they are, what their experiences are, and helping to guide them in that gentle way that adolescents really need, in the sense that we aren't here to tell them what to do, but we're here to guide them and help them discover their best selves. Um, and so, yeah, this work is great. I've been in business for just a little over a year now. I've had some amazing clients. We've had some really great success in the areas that they've been um, pursuing, whether that's college or independent school or even graduate school. And it's great. Yeah, I think the areas that I'm learning about is being a business owner and all that entails. But the best part is, I get to work with amazing people who are looking for help, and especially this kind of support.
You do you find through your work that the adolescents that you're working with are struggling to find the balance between pleasing their parents and what their parents' expectations may be and what their passions may be? Because just in our age group, we know so many people who went to college or pursued things in their adult lives because it was something their parents were very passionate about seeing them do versus something they wanted to do. And I find that those folks have more squiggles in their lives down the road. Is that something you've experienced, or what does that look like in the work that you're doing?
That's a great question. I would say most families reach out to me first and foremost because they're so worried about messing up their children. They are so
So
worried that they're going to,
relatable as a parent, right?
I
Like,
know, more.
let me just do the best I can so, I don't mess them up. And if they get messed up, at least it's
Totally.
not my fault, right? At that point.
Exactly. And I think that's I'll take the college piece because that one seems to be the most loaded. It's like this process is so insane, and it puts so much pressure on these students at a time in their lives where they're also just trying to get their best grades, perform their best, whatever their extracurricular activity is. And their parents are so scared that is my child doing the applications? Are they going to be on time? What's their essay going to look like? And it creates this tension between parents and their student that, causes so much, whether it's arguments or fighting or silence. And that is not at all what the student or the family needs right now. And so I think, yes, Ashley, definitely there are so many families out there that, you know, we have developed brains. We get to see what the end product or goal is. And these teens, they actually need the experience of going through the process and making their own choices to have those experiences that we have. That's them becoming independent. It's them learning who they are. It's them learning what feels good and what doesn't feel good. And so, my clients, I think all of them have advanced degrees and they still feel like their parents do. And they still feel like they don't know what they're doing. And that says a lot about what the process entails. And it says a lot about how much these families care about their children. And most of them are not saying, I need my kid to go to a top 20 school. They're saying they want their kids to feel good when they're there. They want to love what they're studying. If they're not happy there, they support them looking elsewhere. So I feel like it's really shifted from my child must go to this specific type of school to how can I help my child feel the best? And I really appreciate that. But for students, it's just such a hard process for them to go through because schools are so selective that there is no guarantee. There is no magic wand that you can wave and say, this is what it takes to get into this school.
Yeah, it's one thing that I've always said that I would never in a million years go back to being a teenager.
Yeah,
And
me
and
neither.
it's because of all of that. I just what a challenging time it was, and I think I would potentially feel differently if I had someone
Yeah.
like you in my life at that time. But So I just appreciate the work that you're doing for our future children and our children right now, because I just know personally how difficult of a time I had as a teenager, and trying to navigate going to college, or not wanting to go to college but doing it anyway, etc. And so it's really important work that you're doing. Yeah.
If you're a leader, you're probably moving really fast, making those decisions, solving problems, carrying responsibility. Our executive coaching here at Maxity helps you to create the space to clarify your leadership vision, to harness your strengths, and to navigate the real challenges with intention. You'll leave every session sharper, more aligned, and ready to lead in a way that's distinctly yours. Learn more at maxity.com. That's maxady.com.
I think what set me on this path was I remember being 16 years old and stepping outside of the student center. I went to a boarding school, which was really unexpected for my family. And I remember thinking, I'm always going to remember this moment when I feel like nobody sees me, nobody cares about me. In adolescence, like being a teenager is so hard. And I feel as though there are so few folks out there who really remember that to their core. And one of the pieces that's so important is that teens are seen and they are loved and they are valued, because those are the foundation. That's the foundation for what we all want in life. And if you can help somebody establish that deep within their core at this age, it just sets them up for success. It's sort of like, building for the future. And I agree with you. I feel as though there is such a lack of support for teens. And that's, I think, what drew me to boarding schools is, every student there has an advisor, and that advisor is your guide. They guide you through the process. And I think my goal is to take that model and share it more broadly, share it more widely with families, because it really makes a difference in the life of a young person.
And I also found, so I have two kids who are graduating college
Oh,
any day now.
congratulations.
Yes. So
Oh, congratulations. Oh, that's
tuition
huge,
payments are done.
Colleen.
So, we got all that.
Wow.
And, they are both wonderful, wonderful women, right? They both picked schools that were perfect for them, right? Very, very different schools. They're at, one small liberal arts college where everybody knows each other. And then the other's at a big school in Montreal, big city kind of thing. The one in the city came to visit the one at the small liberal arts school 2 weekends ago and said everywhere they went, everybody looked at her and they're like, "Who are you?" Right? Because the one who goes to the small school, everybody knows each other, right? And that was the environment that was like, they both found the right environment for them. And I know when we were looking at schools with them, we kept saying that over and over again. Find the place where you see your people, find the right environment. I don't care what the academic standing is. Like, yeah, yes, we want you to go a place where you're going to get a good education. And it's almost secondary in our minds. We kept saying, go to the place where you find your people, go to the place where you feel like you don't have to have everyone be the same as you. Yes, diversity is important, but also make sure you see some people that you can connect to, and find those connections. Build that away family for yourself. Build those people. And having watched both girls, well, women now, right, do this over the last 4 years, I keep saying to them, like, that's all I wanted for you for college, right? I don't care what your grades are. And we regularly sang a song when they were going off to college that C's get degrees, because we kept saying A students are boring. If you have solid A's, you have done nothing at college. That is the importance of college. So don't get
I
straight
love
A's.
that.
Yeah, C's get degrees. My husband was like, should I write an entire song about it? I'm like, sure, let's go viral. We haven't gone viral. He hasn't written the whole song yet. But that whole piece of that, right? It's the people that are going to help you. It's the ones who are going to make your decision, right? It's my one daughter whose roommate took her to the ER one time when she had a migraine and was like harassing the nurses because they weren't, treating my daughter fast enough in her mind, right? Having those people who have your back and knowing who they are, right? That's, to me, the most important thing that they're learning at college. Now, neither of my kids also were going to medical school, so C's might get degrees. They don't go to medical school. So I get that.
So there's balance in there.
There's balance in there. But again, neither of my kids are planning to go to medical school. So I'm like, I don't care. Like, don't get straight A's. Find your people, make the relationships, build the people who are going to be the folks that you rely on for the rest of your life.
I feel like we need to put that on a t-shirt. The go to the place where you find your people, because that can be applied to any period of time in your life.
Yes.
Not just, yes.
We had someone on the podcast, I don't know, 2 months ago or something. No, it might have been December. It might have been a while long ago because, my brain gets fried as I get older here. But we had this woman named Jenna, who's a friendship coach for adults. And literally her whole business is, how do I teach adults how to make friends? And after I got off the call with her, I'm like, wow, I feel this deeply. And I start talking about it with so many of my friends, and we all were feeling this deeply. Now that our kids have gone off to college, we're like, we don't hang out with the parents of their friends anymore. And it's like, whoa, where did that all go?
Oh, yeah.
I love that. I'm so excited for you and your family. I mean, it's such a big deal to have your kid go through these huge milestones in life, graduate from college, 2 young women who are taking their next steps. And I agree with you. I think there's so much pressure to achieve. There's so much pressure to get those A's or get to that school. At the end of the day, it really doesn't matter.
It doesn't.
And I say that in the sense that, I was someone who had to work pretty hard to change, I think, what could have been the trajectory of my life. And I did that through education. And that was something that my mom really instilled in us. Is she didn't have a higher education. She said, I'm going to give that to my children. And I really took that to heart. And I said, I'm of course, I'm going to do this. I never imagined that I'd, even get a graduate degree, let alone, be able to do all that I did in college and after college. But I do feel as though when you get on this path that you're supposed to check these boxes and you're supposed to keep achieving, and sometimes you pursue that at the cost of yourself.
Yes.
I feel as though I got to this point where I realized I need to step off this elevator. This is not what I want to do. Like I already said, but when I looked up at the positions that were above me, and I realized I didn't want any of those anymore, I realized there's got to be something else out there for me. And I still feel like I'm still figuring it out. I do feel like there's going to be some more squiggles along the way.
Of course there will be.
Right now.
Yeah.
My dream job is to be a lavender farmer and live in Provence in France. And so I don't think I'm going to make that happen because I'm actually pretty terrible at keeping lavender alive. But there's something about it that feels grounded and connected and sort of spiritual. So I don't know. Maybe I will. But, I guess my point, and it started with your good sharing, is don't feel like you have to stay on the stairs and just go climb every step after step after step. Like, look laterally, get out, go back downstairs and go find, go step outside, because I think that we are meant to change and we are meant to, evolve in who we are as people. And sometimes the professions we start with, I started working at a boarding school when I was 21 and I left when I was 42, I guess. And I kind of wish I left sooner because I had those moments where I felt like I should have and I didn't. And I just kept thinking, no, like just keep going. And I'm glad I did. I'm excited for what's next. And I'm really happy with the work that I'm doing right now.
And so many people can relate to what you just said about some feeling like they stayed too long, or sometimes even achieving something that they had romanticized in their head to be one way, and once they got there, it wasn't what they were expecting. So, what a great tip for us to share with the listeners. Just don't feel like you have to stay there if you're not happy there.
Yeah.
And that you don't have to move up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Last year I coached 2 different people on asking for demotions at work. Right? Because they
Huh.
had gotten promoted up to the point that they're like, I'm not even doing the work anymore. I'm not doing
Yeah.
the stuff that I love anymore. I'm spending all my time managing people and I don't love doing that. And so
Yeah.
the first one came to me and I did a post about it. And then somebody else reached out and they're like, oh, yeah, I need help with that too. Please help me
Yeah.
figure out how to get myself demoted. Now it came with a pay cut because they had
Yeah.
right increases. But you don't have to say yes every time someone offers you a chance to move up.
Yeah.
You can say
Yeah.
no and that you're happy
Yeah.
where you are.
Completely. And I think that goes along with not connecting your value
Mm.
to achieving the workplace. Absolutely.
This has been such a great conversation, Kristen. I feel like we could talk forever about, colleges and next steps and helping people figure that out because I think kids, teens, adults, we all need that help sometimes, right? We need the person to have that conversation with or have just somebody who's an independent voice, right?
Yeah.
To have the conversation. So I love this. Ashleigh, do you want to bring us home with some of our fun rapid fire end of podcast questions?
I would love to. Okay, so because it's rapid fire, it's just sharing the first thing that comes to mind for you. Okay, so are you a morning routine person or a go with the flow?
Both.
Ooh, okay,
Mm.
maybe expand on that one a little bit.
I have to have a cup of tea every morning, but I don't need my morning to look the same as to what I do after that. But I like to just start my routine in the morning with a ritual of a cup of tea.
Love that. There's nothing better than warming up first thing in the morning. What's your favorite way to get outside or experience being outside?
Two quick answers. One are dogs. That's one of the
Oh,
things I love about drugs. They make you get outside no matter the weather, no matter the
yeah.
elements. And then I started this goal for myself. When you work so long, sometimes you can let go of the things that are important to you. So exercise for me was one that was harder for me to fit into my day when I was, doing my previous work. And so October 2023, I set a goal for myself. No, 2024. It's so hard to keep track of the years these days. Um, I set a goal for myself to run, bike, or walk 2 miles every day. And so, yeah, I've stuck to it every day since then.
Wow,
No
bravo.
exception. I'm not that rigid in my life. I love the gray. I love the maybes, but this is something I've stuck with. So that gets me outside every day. My advice is keep the bar low. It's easy to jump on an indoor bike for 2 miles a day. It's like 10 minutes.
Yeah,
But yeah, that's
I love that. And that's excellent advice. What is one word that your students would use to describe you? It's actually a much harder question to ask anyone than it sounds, but
I wish they were here right now. I think seen.
ooh,
They would describe me as I make them feel seen.
oh, I love that.
Yeah. Or known. I don't know. Those are too hard. 2 words that are important to me with them. Known and seen.
And then lastly,
And then one.
you are not required to answer one way or the other in this just because you're on our podcast with us, but are you more of a book or a podcast person?
I am a 100% book person, but this has gotten me listening to Embrace the Squiggle. I think I started listening to it, I would say, maybe this fall. A friend of mine had recommended it to me. I'm hoping she gets on your podcast. She's amazing. And I just don't find that I have a lot of time to listen, but I read every night religiously. It's the way that I unwind, and it's really changed my sleep. So reading for me. But you guys do a great job.
I promise it wasn't for a plug. I promise. But okay, so as an avid reader, as we wrap up the episode, what is a book you would like to share with everyone that you would recommend?
This is like a workbook. And I just recommended it to a dad I randomly met at my daughter's ski lesson this winter. But he has a daughter who's 12, and he's a single parent, and he was describing these struggles and what it's like to have tween or teenage girls. And so Dr. Lisa DeMore, I'm not sure if you've heard of her, but she's incredible. She's a psychologist who works with young girls at a school in the Midwest, but she's written a couple books, but the book that for me really moved the needle in how I think about young girls in particular is called Untangled. So it really is a book. What I love, her style, and I modeled my thesis around this, is where you share a story about what you've experienced in your work that's really relatable. And then you use your research or your sort of professional knowledge to explain what that was. And Untangled talks about these, pretty big milestones that happen in an adolescent girl's life and what's happening there, and how, as a parent or a caregiver, you can help support your child during that moment. And it is amazing. And so then I saw this dad, a couple weeks later. It was a 6-week ski lesson. You go once a week. And he starts talking to this other guy who happens to be my husband about this book that he's reading called Untangled. And my husband looks over and he goes, "Oh yeah, I think my wife might have given you that recommendation." He's like, "Where is she? I need to thank her because it really helped him." So the book Untangled, Lisa DeMore, and I hope it can help some of your readers out there who have some young daughters or adolescents in their lives.
Thank you for sharing that, and thank you for sharing your time and experience with us and all of our squigglers. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to watching more of your success.
Thank you so much to you both, and thank you for this really important work. I'm honored to be a part of it.
Thanks so much, Kristen. We will link in the show notes the information to AWren Advisors for everybody so that they can connect with you there.
Thank you so much.